Kia ora everybody, Ceilidh here again to explain to you the third and final process of our global study that created the ageing population globally. So once again, we're going to be looking at a process. This process is called the falling birth rate. So we start again with a statement that repeats the question. You'd write something like, another process that caused the ageing population is the falling birth rate. Then you expand, give specific examples, and link it to the global population. So we're going to read through the information that's in your resource booklet, and once again I have colour-coded this information to help you look at the sequence of events in the process. So remember, a process, one thing happens, then the next, then the next. You have to show me a change over time for it to be a process. Now this resource here has actually been made a wee bit tricky. They haven't put it in order for you. So what is a falling birth rate? Well, basically the falling birth rate means women are having less babies. So back in the 1950s, on average, each woman had 5 children. Today, people are having around 2.5. Now, you can't have half a baby, but it's an average, all right? So the average number of children people have is far less now than it was in 1950. Why are women having less babies? That's the process. And because there are less children being born, that means the proportion of elderly in our population is higher, all right? So what were the steps involved to cause the birth rate to fall? First of all, the first thing that happened was the blue sentence. All right. In the 1960s, science and technology developed the contraceptive pill. So women were able to plan their families and choose to have less babies. Now, people chose to have less babies because it costs a lot of money to have children, you realise. And if you have less children, then you have more disposable income to do other things. So in the 1960s, the first step was the pill was introduced, and that meant people could have less babies. Second of all, the yellow. Along with the pill came improved healthcare and education for women. All right? So this meant that women were able to make better decisions about how many children they wanted to have. The third step in the falling birth rate process is women in some countries were choosing to have children later, which means, and I've got it in bold here, the average age of first-time mothers has increased. Now, I'm one of those people. I had my eldest child, who many of you know. I was 34 when he was born. How old was your mum when you were born? I would have been considered an old mum having my first child at 34. And I chose to have a family later in life. I was far too busy being important as a school teacher teaching geography to want to waste my time having babies in my 20s. All right? So that you can use me as a specific example of a woman who's chosen to have her first child at a later age. The next stage in the falling birth rate process is the green stage. A number of women are choosing to have careers rather than having any children or having as many children. All right? There are quite a number of people who have chosen to not have families at all. And because there are people having less children or choosing to have no children, that means that we have an ageing population. The other thing, I'll just come back to the pink one. When you have a child for the first time and you're older, you have less time to have lots of babies. So when I had my first child at 34, that meant that I didn't have time to have too many. Whereas if you start having babies when you're 14 or 15, you can probably have loads of children by the time you get to about 45. All right? So starting a family later also contributes to an ageing population. All right, so those are the steps that you need to talk through in your own words. Don't cut and paste that. You have to put those in your own words. Rewrite it in your own words. Remember to name countries and continents that have lots of old people again. For example, the countries that of da-da-da have an ageing population due to the falling birth rate. You need to link the process of the falling birth rate to the ageing population to finish that paragraph. Very good. Talk later. Ka kite.